Daniel Harrington had everything money could buy. Rebecca Harrington had everything the world admired, and their children Emily and Lucas had the future laid out before them. Yet by sunrise, all four were found dead inside their own mansion. From the outside, they were the definition of success: wealth, power, beauty, and privilege wrapped into one perfect family portrait. But behind the locked gates and glowing city views, secrets were growing like cracks beneath polished marble floors. Hidden money, silent fears, and private betrayals were building pressure inside a house designed to look flawless. What happened that night was not a random act of violence. It was the final explosion of a carefully hidden war within the Harrington family. The Harrington family looked like they were living a dream that most people only see on television. Daniel Harrington was known across the city as a brilliant businessman who had built his technology company from the ground up. His success was often featured in magazines, and he was invited to speak at business conferences where he shared his story of discipline and hard work. Rebecca Harrington was admired for her beauty and calm presence. She organized charity events, supported local hospitals, and appeared beside her husband at every public function with a confident smile. Their two children, Emily and Lucas, were students at one of the most expensive private schools in the state. Emily played the piano and won academic awards. Lucas was a rising star on his school's soccer team. Their mansion stood on top of a quiet hill, overlooking the city lights. The property was protected by tall iron gates and surrounded by cameras placed carefully at every corner. The lawn was always trimmed perfectly, and luxury cars filled the driveway. Neighbors rarely saw arguments or signs of trouble. The family appeared polite, composed, and almost too perfect. Holiday photos showed them laughing in matching outfits, standing in front of tropical beaches or snowy mountains. But perfection can be a powerful mask. On a cold October morning, the silence of that hill was broken. The iron gates were strangely left open, swaying slightly in the wind. A housekeeper arrived early and immediately sensed something was wrong. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the air felt heavy and still. Within minutes, authorities were called. What they discovered inside the Harrington mansion shocked the entire city and shattered the image of a flawless family forever. Daniel Harrington's journey to wealth had always been described as inspiring. He started his company in a small rented office with only 2 employees and a single idea that many investors had once rejected. Over time, that idea turned into a powerful software platform used by major corporations. His company grew quickly, attracting attention from competitors and investors across the country. Within a decade, Daniel had transformed himself from an unknown entrepreneur into a respected industry leader. His confidence increased with his success, and so did his need for control. Behind the public image of calm leadership, Daniel had changed. Former employees later explained that he became unusually strict and secretive. He limited access to company data and insisted on approving even minor decisions. He believed competitors were constantly watching him. He often warned his team about corporate sabotage and hidden enemies. What once looked like careful business strategy slowly began to resemble deep paranoia. Financial investigators later uncovered unusual patterns in the company's records. Large amounts of money had been quietly transferred into offshore accounts over several months. The transactions were hidden through complex layers of shell companies. At first glance, everything appeared legal, but the timing raised questions. The transfers began shortly after Daniel's company lost a major contract to a rival firm. There were also signs that the company was not as strong as it appeared. Internal reports showed declining profits and rising debt. Publicly, Daniel continued to project confidence and growth. Privately, pressure was building. The weight of maintaining his empire seemed heavier than anyone realized. The successful businessman admired by many was living with fears and financial strains that were carefully concealed from the world. Rebecca Harrington had always appeared calm and composed in public. She dressed elegantly, spoke softly, and carried herself with quiet confidence. At charity events, she was known for her kindness and generosity. She volunteered at children's hospitals and organized fundraising dinners that attracted powerful guests from across the city. To outsiders, she looked like the perfect partner to a wealthy businessman. Her social media showed family vacations, anniversary celebrations, and smiling portraits that suggested a stable and loving marriage. Behind the polished image, however, Rebecca's life was more complicated. Investigators later discovered that she had recently reopened contact with her maiden name, using it to establish a private bank account unknown to Daniel. Over several months, small deposits were made into this account, followed by one unusually large transfer that stood out. The source of the money traced back to one of Daniel's offshore accounts, raising serious questions about who had authorized it and why. Rebecca had also quietly scheduled meetings with a respected divorce attorney in a neighboring city. The appointments were kept discreet, and the paperwork she reviewed focused heavily on asset protection and custody arrangements. Though no official filing had been submitted, the preparation suggested she was considering a major change in her life. Friends later reflected on subtle shifts in her behavior. She seemed distracted at social gatherings and left events earlier than usual. Some noticed she had stopped wearing certain expensive jewelry pieces Daniel had gifted her. Others observed that she had grown unusually protective of her children, often canceling their plans at the last minute. The perfect image she maintained required effort. Underneath the surface, Rebecca appeared to be preparing for something serious, possibly even dangerous. Emily Harrington had always been described as thoughtful and mature for her age. At 17, she balanced advanced classes, piano lessons, and volunteer work that would strengthen her college applications. Teachers admired her focus, and friends saw her as dependable. Yet in the months before the tragedy, subtle changes began to appear. She spent more time alone in her room and less time posting cheerful photos online. After investigators accessed her laptop, they discovered a private digital journal she had carefully hidden behind password protection. Her entries did not contain dramatic accusations or clear explanations, but they revealed a heavy atmosphere inside the house. She wrote about tension that filled the hallways late at night. She described hearing footsteps long after midnight and noticing her father checking the security monitors repeatedly. She mentioned her mother locking the bedroom door more often than before. Though she avoided specific details, her words carried fear and confusion. She sensed something was wrong, but did not fully understand what it was. Lucas, only 15, showed his stress in different ways. Once energetic and social, he had become quiet and withdrawn. His grades dropped noticeably, and his soccer coach reported that he lacked focus during practice. School counselors noted that he seemed tired and distracted, often staring at nothing during conversations. Friends later admitted that he stopped inviting them to the mansion, something he used to do proudly. The children were surrounded by luxury and comfort, yet they were living inside growing uncertainty. They could not control the arguments they sensed or the secrets unfolding around them. While the world admired their perfect life, Emily and Lucas were quietly experiencing a reality far more troubling than anyone realized. The night of the murders began quietly, at least on the surface. Security logs showed that the family returned home before 9 p.m. The gates closed automatically behind them, and there were no alerts triggered by the alarm system. Inside the mansion, everything appeared routine. Lights turned off one by one as the house settled into darkness. From the outside, it looked like any other peaceful night on the hill. At 1:13 a.m., the internal security cameras abruptly stopped recording. Investigators later confirmed the system had been manually disabled from inside the house. There was no evidence of hacking or forced entry. Whoever shut down the cameras had access to the control panel and knew exactly how it worked. The crime scene told a disturbing story. Daniel was found in his home office, seated near his desk. There were no signs of a violent struggle around him. Rebecca was discovered upstairs in the bedroom hallway, while Emily and Lucas were found in their separate rooms. The pattern of violence appeared controlled rather than chaotic. Nothing valuable was missing. Jewelry, cash, and expensive electronics were untouched. Forensic testing revealed a critical detail. Daniel had a high concentration of sedatives in his bloodstream, strong enough to leave him disoriented or unconscious. The medication matched a prescription that belonged to Rebecca, though the dosage found in his body exceeded normal use. Investigators determined he had been drugged hours before his death. Rebecca, however, showed defensive wounds, suggesting she had fought back. The timeline became confusing. If Daniel had been sedated, how did events escalate into such a violent end? The lack of outside fingerprints confirmed one chilling conclusion. No stranger entered that house that night. Whatever happened began and ended within the family's own walls. As investigators continued examining phone records and deleted messages, they uncovered evidence of a hidden relationship that added another layer to the mystery. For months, Rebecca had been communicating frequently with Marcus Cole, Daniel's former business partner. The contact was not casual. Records showed long calls late at night and encrypted messages exchanged during times when Daniel was traveling for work. The connection had been carefully concealed, with certain entries deleted from call logs and messaging apps. Marcus had once played a major role in building Daniel's company. He was known for his creative thinking and risk-taking strategies. A year before the murders, he quietly exited the company. Publicly, the separation was described as mutual and professional. Privately, financial disagreements had created tension. Marcus reportedly felt pushed out of decisions and cut off from future profits. After leaving, his independent investments performed poorly, leaving him in serious financial trouble. The discovery of Rebecca's secret communication with him immediately raised suspicion. Investigators questioned whether the relationship was emotional, strategic, or both. Financial records revealed that Marcus had recently attempted to secure large loans, but had been denied due to unstable income. Around the same period, Rebecca's private account received unexplained deposits. Despite the suspicious timing, no physical evidence placed Marcus at the mansion on the night of the murders. Surveillance cameras from nearby roads did not capture his vehicle. Digital location data showed his phone active miles away during the critical hours. His alibi was supported by electronic timestamps that were difficult to dispute. Still, the connection deepened the mystery. Whether he was directly involved or simply part of a complicated web of secrets, Marcus represented another fracture in the illusion of the Harrington family's perfect life. As financial investigators reviewed insurance files and legal documents, they uncovered information that shifted the direction of the case. 3 weeks before the murders, Daniel had significantly increased his life insurance coverage. The new policy was worth tens of millions of dollars, and Rebecca was listed as the sole beneficiary. The timing immediately raised suspicion. There was no public reason for such a dramatic increase. Daniel was not ill, and no major business deal required additional coverage. At the same time, records showed that Rebecca had quietly completed preliminary divorce paperwork. The documents had been prepared, but never officially filed in court. Legal experts later explained that if Daniel died before a divorce was finalized, Rebecca would inherit the full insurance payout and maintain control over a large portion of his estate. If the divorce had been completed first, the financial outcome would have been far less favorable for her. The situation became even more complicated when investigators discovered a second, less visible financial move. Rebecca's private bank account had received a large deposit just 2 days before the murders. The transfer came from one of Daniel's offshore accounts, funds that had already drawn attention due to their secrecy. It was unclear whether Daniel had authorized the transaction or if Rebecca had accessed it without his knowledge. These discoveries opened multiple possibilities. One theory suggested a financial motive rooted in divorce and inheritance. Another theory hinted at internal conflict over hidden money. The insurance increase, the quiet legal preparation, and the sudden fund transfer created a web of motives that pointed in different directions. Instead of clarifying the truth, the financial evidence made the tragedy appear even more calculated and complex than anyone first believed. Months after the murders, digital forensic specialists continued analyzing recovered devices from the mansion. Deleted files, hidden folders, and encrypted backups slowly revealed fragments of the truth. On Daniel's phone, Investigators restored internet search history that had been wiped just hours before the cameras went dark. The searches included detailed information about lethal sedative dosages, methods to disable home surveillance systems, and ways to stage a crime scene to resemble a targeted attack. The pattern was too specific to ignore. Further examination uncovered a second life insurance policy that had not been immediately visible. This policy covered Rebecca and both children, with Daniel listed as the sole beneficiary. The value was large enough to secure a comfortable life abroad. Combined with the offshore accounts holding significant funds, investigators began forming a darker theory. Daniel may have been planning to eliminate his family, collect the insurance money, and disappear using hidden assets prepared months earlier. But the evidence also showed that Rebecca had recently accessed financial files and email exchanges that Daniel believed were private. Metadata confirmed she had opened documents related to offshore transfers and insurance details. It appeared she had discovered at least part of his plan. Toxicology results suggested Daniel had been drugged earlier in the evening, likely before events spiraled into violence. Forensic reconstruction indicated a struggle occurred after he regained partial awareness. Rebecca's defensive injuries supported the idea that she fought back, possibly in desperation. What investigators could not determine with certainty was who initiated the final, fatal confrontation. The timeline showed rapid escalation inside a locked house with no outside interference. By morning, every member of the family was gone.